In the heart of a lush valley, nestled between towering mountains and pristine forests, lay the village of Lumina. For generations, its inhabitants had lived in harmony with nature, their days filled with simple joys and honest labor. The village was a tapestry of thatched-roof cottages, winding cobblestone paths, and gardens bursting with vibrant flowers and hearty vegetables. As dawn broke over the eastern peaks, casting a golden glow across the misty valley, the villagers of Lumina stirred from their slumber. Farmers headed to their fields, craftsmen to their workshops, and children to the village square for their daily lessons. The air hummed with the gentle rhythm of a community at peace with itself and the world around it. Among the villagers was Eloin, a young woman with bright eyes and an insatiable curiosity. While others found contentment in their routines, Eloin always felt a yearning for something more. She spent her free moments poring over ancient texts in the village library, searching for glimpses of a world beyond the valley's protective embrace. On this particular morning, as Eloin made her way to the bakery where she worked, she noticed an unusual stillness in the air. The birds had fallen silent, and even the ever-present rustling of leaves seemed muted. She paused, her senses alert, when a flash of movement caught her eye. At the village's edge, where the main road disappeared into the dense forest, a figure emerged. Tall and lithe, clothed in robes that shimmered like moonlight on water, the stranger moved with a grace that seemed almost otherworldly. Eloin's heart raced with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. As the newcomer approached, villagers stopped in their tracks, conversations hushed, and all eyes turned to the unexpected visitor. The stranger's face was partially obscured by a hood, but Eloin could make out sharp, intelligent eyes and a warm smile. "Greetings, people of Lumina," the stranger's voice rang out, clear and melodious. "I am Zara, a traveler from distant lands. I come seeking shelter and perhaps to share what knowledge I have gathered on my journeys." Elder Thorn, the village's respected leader, stepped forward, his weathered face creased with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Welcome, Zara. Lumina has long been a haven for those who seek peace. But I must ask, what brings you to our humble village?" Zara's smile deepened, a twinkle in her eye. "I have traveled far and wide, Elder Thorn, and I have learned that the greatest wisdom often resides in the most unexpected places. I sense something special about Lumina, a potential waiting to be awakened." Murmurs rippled through the gathered crowd. Eloin felt her pulse quicken at Zara's words. Could this be the change she had been yearning for? Elder Thorn stroked his silver beard thoughtfully. "Potentially say, we are but simple folk, content with our lives and the blessings nature provides." "Ah, but contentment need not be the enemy of growth," Zara replied, her voice taking on a hint of playfulness. "What if I told you that each person here possesses abilities beyond their wildest dreams? Gifts that, if nurtured, could transform not only your lives but the world around you." The murmurs grew louder, a mix of excitement and disbelief. Some villagers scoffed, while others leaned in, hanging on Zara's every word. Elder Thorn raised a hand, silencing the crowd. "These are bold claims, traveler. In Lumina, we value actions over words. If what you say is true, perhaps a demonstration is in order." Zara nodded, her smile never wavering. "Of course, Elder. I would be happy to show you a glimpse of what I speak." She turned to address the gathered villagers. "Who among you would volunteer to discover the extraordinary within themselves?" A tense silence fell over the square. Villagers glanced at one another, a mixture of curiosity and trepidation on their faces. Eloin felt her heart pounding, every fiber of her being urging her to step forward. Just as she was about to volunteer, a gruff voice called out from the crowd. "I'll do it," declared Garrick, the village blacksmith. He shouldered his way through the crowd, his muscular arms folded across his broad chest. "Let's see what tricks you have up your sleeve, traveler." Zara inclined her head in acknowledgement. "Thank you, brave smith. Tell me, what is it you create in your forge?" Garrick's brow furrowed. "Tools, mostly. Plowshares, horse shows, the occasional sword for ceremonial purposes. And in your work, do you ever feel a connection to the metal you shape, as if it speaks to you, guiding your hammer? The blacksmith's frown deepened. Speak to me. It's just metal, traveler. It does what I tell it to, nothing more. Zora's eyes sparkled with amusement. Perhaps, but humor me for a moment. Close your eyes and hold out your hands. Garrick hesitated, then complied with a shrug. Zora approached him, her movements fluid and deliberate. She placed a small, rough stone in each of his palms. These are raw iron ore, she explained. Now, I want you to focus on the essence of the metal within. Feel its potential, its desire to take shape. Imagine the heat of your forge, the rhythm of your hammer. Let that energy flow through you. The crowd watched in hushed anticipation as Garrick stood motionless, his face a mask of concentration. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, ever so slowly, the stones in his hands began to glow. A collective gasp rose from the onlookers as the glow intensified, the raw ore melting and reshaping itself. Garrick's eyes flew open in shock, but Zora's gentle voice urged him to maintain his focus. The molten metal flowed like water, defying gravity as it swirled and danced above his palms. With a final surge of energy, the glowing mass solidified, forming two intricately designed braces that settled gently onto Garrick's forearms. The blacksmith stared at his arms in disbelief, turning them this way and that to examine the impossibly delicate yet strong metalwork. How is this possible?" he stammered. Zora's smile was radiant. "This, my friend, is just the beginning of what you are capable of." The metal responded to your innate connection, your lifetime of expertise, given form through the power within you. The village erupted in excited chatter. Elder Thorne stepped forward, his eyes wide with wonder. "In all my years, I've never seen anything like this. Zora, you've given us much to consider. I believe we would be fools to turn away the knowledge you offer." As the elder spoke, Elowen felt a surge of emotion. The world she had always dreamed of, filled with magic and limitless possibilities, was suddenly within reach. She pushed her way to the front of the crowd, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "Please, Zora," she called, "teach us. Show us how to awaken these gifts within ourselves." Zora turned to Elowen, her gaze seeming to pierce through to her very soul. "Ah, young one, your heart already sings with the power of potential. Tell me, what is it you truly desire to learn?" Elowen took a deep breath, years of pent-up longing pouring out in a rush of words. "I want to understand the language of the wind, to read the stories written in the stars. I want to heal with a touch and bring life to barren soil. I want to explore the depths of human potential and use it to make our world a better place." A hush fell over the gathered villagers, Elowen's passionate words stirring something deep within each of them. Zora's expression softened, a look of profound understanding passing between her and the young woman. "Then let us begin," Zora declared, her voice carrying to every corner of the square. "For in Lumina, I sense the seed of a great awakening. Together, we shall nurture that seed and watch as it blossoms into something truly extraordinary." As the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting away the last tendrils of morning mist, the village of Lumina stood on the precipice of transformation. The air crackled with anticipation, dreams long dormant stirring to life in the hearts of its people. Zara turned to address the entire village, her arms spread wide in welcome. "People of Lumina, today marks the beginning of a new chapter in your lives. Each of you possesses a unique gift, a spark of the extraordinary waiting to be fanned into flame. In the days to come, we will explore these gifts together, learning to harness the power that has always resided within you." Elder Thorne stepped forward, his weathered face alight with a youthful enthusiasm. "Zora, we humbly accept your offer of guidance. How shall we begin this journey of discovery?" The traveler's eyes twinkled with mischief and wisdom. "We begin, dear elder, by opening our minds to the impossible, for it is only when we challenge our preconceptions that we can truly grow." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the eager faces before her. Let us meet again as the sun sets. Bring with you an object that holds special meaning, something that resonates with your soul. Through these tokens, we shall begin to unlock the potential within each of you. As the crowd dispersed, buzzing with excitement and speculation, Elowen found herself rooted to the spot, her mind whirling with possibilities. Zara approached her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Your spirit burns bright, young Elowen," Zara said softly. "The path ahead may not always be easy, but I sense that you have the strength to face whatever challenges arise." Elowen looked up at the mysterious traveler, her heart full of hope and determination. "I'm ready, Zara. Whatever it takes, I want to learn to grow, to become more than I ever thought possible." Zara nodded, a hint of pride in her smile. "Then let us take the first steps on this grand adventure together. For in awakening the power within yourselves, you may just change the fate of Lumina and the world beyond." As Zara moved away to speak with other villagers, Elowen stood tall, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The peaceful village she had known all her life was on the cusp of transformation, and she was determined to be at the forefront of this awakening. Little did she know that the journey ahead would test not only her newfound abilities, but also the very fabric of her world. The first day of Lumina's awakening drew to a close, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. As darkness fell, a sense of anticipation settled over the village like a warm blanket. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, and the first steps towards unlocking the extraordinary potential that lay dormant within each villager. And so, as the stars began to twinkle in the velvet sky, the people of Lumina prepared for sleep, their dreams filled with visions of the wonders that awaited them. The quiet village, once content in its simplicity, now pulsed with the promise of a future limited only by the boundaries of imagination and the strength of the human spirit. As dawn broke over Lumina, the village stirred with an energy it had never known before. The air hummed with anticipation, and even the earliest risers moved with a newfound purpose. The events of the previous day had kindled a spark of wonder in the hearts of the villagers, and they were eager to fan it into flame. Elowen woke before the sun, her dreams filled with swirling colors and whispered promises of untapped potential. She dressed quickly, clutching a small leather-bound journal to her chest, the object she had chosen as her token. It was a gift from her grandmother, filled with pressed flowers and fragments of poetry. To Elowen, it represented her deepest longings and the mysteries of the natural world she yearned to understand. As she stepped out into the crisp morning air, Elowen noticed others already making their way to the village square. Carrick the blacksmith strode past, the mystical braces still adorning his forearms. He nodded to her, a mix of excitement and apprehension in his eyes. In the center of the square stood Zara, her silver robes shimmering in the early light. She greeted each villager with a warm smile, her eyes twinkling with secrets yet to be revealed. When everyone had gathered, she raised her hands for silence. "Welcome, people of Lumina," Zara's voice carried across the hushed crowd. "Today, we begin a journey of discovery, not just of the world around us, but of the vast potential that lies within each of you. Show me the tokens you have brought, the objects that speak to your souls." One by one, the villagers stepped forward, presenting their chosen items. There were family heirlooms, tools of trade, cherished books, and even simple stones pulled from the nearby stream. Zara examined each with care, occasionally closing her eyes as if listening to an unheard melody. When Elowen's turn came, she held out her journal with trembling hands. Zara's fingers brushed the worn cover, and a soft gasp escaped her lips. "Ah, young Elowen," she murmured, "your heart sings with the poetry of the earth itself. Are you ready to hear its song?" Elowen nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I am." Zara smiled and addressed the crowd once more. "Each of these objects is a key, unlocking a door within you that has long been closed. Now, we shall learn to turn that key and step through into a world of wonder." Over the next hours, Zara guided the villagers through a series of exercises. They learned to quiet their minds, to feel the energy flowing through their bodies and connecting them to the world around them. Some found it easier than others. Garrick struggled to sit still, while the village healer Thea slipped into a meditative state with practiced ease. As the sun climbed higher, strange occurrences began to ripple through the group. Flowers bloomed out of season at the feet of Mary, the quiet gardener. Thea's hands glowed with a soft light as she concentrated, and minor aches and pains in those near her seemed to fade away. Garrick, to his own surprise, found he could shape small pieces of metal with just a touch and force of will. But it was Elowen who drew gasps of amazement from the assembled villagers. As she sat with her journal open on her lap, eyes closed in concentration, the air around her began to shimmer. Ghostly images formed, trees swaying in an unfelt breeze, birds soaring on invisible currents. And then, to everyone's astonishment, the images began to move, telling a story of the forest's life cycle in vivid, ethereal detail. Zora's voice cut through the awed silence. You see, the power has always been within you. It merely needed a catalyst to awaken. As the day wore on, more and more villagers discovered hints of their unique abilities. Some found they could communicate with animals, others developed heightened senses or the power to influence the weather on a small scale. With each new discovery, the excitement in Lumina grew. However, not everyone embraced the changes with open arms. Aldrich, the village's most vocal skeptic, watched the proceedings with a deepening frown. "This isn't natural," he muttered to those around him. "We were content before. What if these gifts bring trouble to our doorstep?" His words fell on mostly deaf ears, but they planted a seed of doubt in some minds. Even Elder Thorn, for all his initial enthusiasm, began to look concerned as he witnessed the rapid transformations taking place. As the sun began to set, Zora called for the villagers' attention once more. "You have taken your first steps into a larger world," she announced. "But remember, with great power comes great responsibility. These gifts are not for personal gain alone, but for the betterment of your community and the world beyond." She turned to Elder Thorn, her expression serious. "I sense your concerns, Elder. Change can be frightening, especially when it comes so swiftly. But I assure you, what is awakening in your people is not a curse, but a blessing, if used wisely." Elder Thorn nodded slowly, his brow furrowed in thought. "I trust your judgment, Zora, but how can we ensure these powers are used for good?" Zora's smile returned, warm and reassuring. "Through guidance, understanding, and most importantly, through the strong sense of community that already exists in Lumina. You will learn together, grow together, and face whatever challenges arise as one." As the meeting dispersed, the villagers broke into excited groups, sharing their experiences and marveling at their newfound abilities. Elowen found herself surrounded by curious peers, all eager to hear about her vivid illusions. "It was as if the forest itself was speaking through me," she explained, her eyes shining. "I could feel the rhythm of life, the whispers of the wind. It was incredible." Nearby, Garrick was demonstrating his enhanced metalworking skills, shaping a lump of iron into intricate patterns with just his thoughts. "I never imagined I could create like this," he said, wonder evident in his gruff voice. "It's like the metal sings to me now." As night fell, the village buzzed with an energy it had never known before. Lights flickered in windows late into the night as families discussed the day's events and speculated about what the future might hold. Elowen lay awake in her bed, her mind too full of possibilities to sleep. She replayed the day's events, marveling at the changes she had witnessed, not just in herself, but in her friends and neighbors. Lumina, once a quiet backwater, now felt like the most exciting place in the world. But even as excitement coursed through her veins, a small voice in the back of her mind echoed Aldrich's concerns. What if these new powers did bring trouble? What if they changed Lumina too much, too fast? She pushed the thoughts aside, focusing instead on the wonders she had experienced. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was certain that Lumina would face them together, stronger and more united than ever before. As Eloin finally drifted off to sleep, the village settled into an uneasy quiet. The first day of their awakening had brought marvels beyond imagination, but it had also sown seeds of uncertainty. The people of Lumina stood on the threshold of a new era, one filled with both promise and peril. Little did they know that far beyond the sheltering mountains, word of the changes in Lumina was already spreading. In distant lands, eyes turned towards the once-forgotten village, some filled with wonder, others with fear, and a few with dangerous ambition. The awakening of Lumina had begun, and with it, the winds of change were stirring across the world. As the villagers slept, dreaming of the magic they had discovered within themselves, forces were already in motion that would test their newfound powers and the bonds of their community. The true challenges lay ahead, waiting to be faced in the light of a new dawn. As weeks passed, Lumina transformed. The once quiet village now thrummed with an energy that seemed to pulse from the very earth itself. Villagers honed their newfound abilities under Zara's guidance, turning mundane tasks into displays of wonder. Fields flourished under Mary's touch, yielding crops of unprecedented abundance. Thea's healing powers grew stronger, drawing the sick and injured from neighboring settlements. Even skeptical Aldrich found himself reluctantly exploring a talent for weather prediction that bordered on the supernatural. Eloin's gift bloomed spectacularly. Her illusions grew more vivid and complex, weaving tales of distant lands and forgotten histories. Children gathered around her in the evenings, wide-eyed as ghostly dragons soared overhead and ancient heroes battled in shimmering tableaus. But with great power came great responsibility, and not all changes were welcome. The sudden influx of outsiders seeking healing or marveling at Lumina's wonders strained the village's resources and challenged its once insular way of life. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, threatening the harmony Zara had worked so hard to cultivate. It was on a crisp autumn morning that the true test of Lumina's awakening arrived. Eloin was the first to sense it. As dawn broke, she bolted upright in bed, her heart racing. The air felt thick, charged with an energy that set her nerves on edge. She rushed to her window, gasping at the sight that greeted her. A bank of ominous storm clouds loomed on the horizon, roiling with unnatural speed towards Lumina. Lightning forked across the sky, but instead of the familiar blue-white, these bolts glowed an eerie purple. The village bell began to toll, its urgent peals cutting through the morning stillness. Villagers poured into the square, faces etched with worry. Elder Thorn's voice rose above the growing clamor. "Calm yourselves," he called. "We must not give in to panic. Zara, what do you make of this?" The silver-robed traveler stood at the center of the gathering, her face grave. "I had hoped we would have more time," she said, her voice carrying a weight Eloin had never heard before. "But it seems our awakening has drawn attention sooner than expected." "What do you mean?" Garrick demanded, his massive arms folded across his chest. "What's coming for us?" Zara's eyes swept the crowd, settling finally on Eloin. There are those in this world who fear change, who see power as something to be hoarded or destroyed. They sense the blossoming of your gifts, and now they come to snuff out the flame before it can truly ignite. A ripple of fear passed through the gathered villagers. Aldrich's voice rose, tinged with accusation. "You brought this upon us. We were safe before you came." "No," Elder Thorn interrupted, his voice firm. "We were not safe. We were stagnant, blind to our own potential. Whatever comes, we will face it together, with the strength Zara has helped us discover within ourselves." As if in response to his words, a cold wind whipped through the square. The storm clouds drew closer, and with them came the sound of marching feet and clanking armor. "They're here," Zara announced, her voice cutting through the rising panic. "People of Lumina, the time has come to decide who you truly are. Will you cower in fear, or will you stand and fight for the gifts you've awakened?" For a moment, silence reigned. Then, one by one, voices rose in determination. "I'll fight," Garrick growled, the mystical braces on his arms glowing with inner fire. "As will I," Thea added, her hands already shimmering with healing light. More voices joined the chorus, until the square rang with declarations of defiance. Elowen stepped forward, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "We all will," she said, meeting Zara's gaze. "This is our home, our future. We won't let anyone take it from us." A smile broke across Zara's face, pride shining in her eyes. "Then let us prepare. Each of you has a role to play in the defense of Lumina. Trust in your gifts, in each other, and in the strength of your community." What followed was a flurry of activity as the village mobilized. Garrick and his fellow metalworkers forged makeshift weapons, imbuing them with their newfound powers. Mary and her gardeners wove barriers of thorny vines around the village perimeter. Thea organized a healing station, preparing for the wounded. Elowen found herself at Zara's side, her mind racing. "What can I do?" she asked, feeling suddenly small in the face of the coming storm. Zara placed a hand on her shoulder. "Your gift, Elowen, is more powerful than you know. Illusions can confuse, can inspire, can change the very course of battle. But more than that, you have the heart of a leader. Your people will look to you in the dark moments ahead. Be ready to light the way." As the first rays of sunlight pierced the unnatural gloom, the enemy forces crested the hill overlooking Lumina. They were a sight to behold, armored warriors wielding weapons that crackled with dark energy, accompanied by hooded figures whose hands wove shadows into terrifying shapes. At their head rode a figure cloaked in midnight blue, his face hidden beneath a helm of polished obsidian. When he spoke, his voice carried across the valley with unnatural clarity. "People of Lumina," the Dark Rider called, "you harbor a power you do not understand. Surrender it now, and you may live. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Elder Thorn stepped forward, his weathered face set in determined lines. "We understand our power better than you think, stranger. It is not yours to take. Lumina stands united, and we will not bow to threats or intimidation." The rider's laugh was cold and mirthless. "So be it." With a gesture, he sent his forces charging down the hill towards the village. The air filled with the screams of twisted creatures and the crackle of dark magic. But Lumina was ready. Mary's thorny barriers sprang to life, ensnaring the first wave of attackers. Garrick and his metalworkers met the enemy head-on, their enchanted weapons blazing with inner light as they clashed against the invaders' dark-forged steel. All around, villagers employed their gifts in ways they had never imagined. A group of farmers, led by Aldrich, called up gusts of wind to buffet the enemy archers. Children who had only days ago been playing with pebbles now hurled stones with uncanny accuracy, guided by newfound talents for trajectories and force. Elowen found herself in the thick of the battle, her illusions sowing confusion among the enemy ranks. Spectral warriors sprang from thin air, causing the invaders to waste precious energy fighting phantoms. When a group of villagers found themselves cornered, Elowen conjured the image of a raging inferno, driving the attackers back in terror. But for all their newfound power, the people of Lumina were untested in true combat. Injuries mounted, and Thea's healing station quickly filled with the wounded. The enemy pressed their advantage, their dark magic corroding Mary's thorny barriers and pushing ever closer to the heart of the village. As the battle raged, Zara moved through the chaos like a silver flame, her powers now fully unleashed. Where she passed, enemy weapons turned to dust and shadow weavers found their magic unraveling. But even she could not be everywhere at once. The tide began to turn against Lumina. Exhaustion set in, and doubt began to creep into the hearts of the defenders. Elowen watched in horror as a group of villagers broke ranks, fleeing towards the supposed safety of the mountains. In that moment of despair, Elowen remembered Zara's words. With a deep breath, she raised her voice above the din of battle. "People of Lumina," she cried, her words carrying a power she had never known before. "Remember who you are. Remember the strength that lies within you." As she spoke, her illusions took on a new quality. No longer mere images, they seemed to pulse with the very essence of Lumina itself. The fleeing villagers stopped in their tracks, turning to see ghostly versions of themselves standing tall, facing the enemy without fear. All across the battlefield, Elowen's illusions sparked a renewed sense of hope and determination. Villagers fighting side by side saw visions of their shared history, their connections, the very soul of their community made manifest. The Dark Rider, sensing the shift in the battle's momentum, spurred his mount forward, a blade of crackling shadows forming in his hand. He charged straight for Elowen, recognizing her as the source of the village's rallying spirit. But he never reached her. With a sound like a thunderclap, Zara appeared between Elowen and the rider. Light blazed from her outstretched hands, meeting the rider's shadow blade in a spectacular collision of energies. Enough. Zara's voice rang out, carrying an authority that seemed to shake the very mountains. You have no claim here, Shadowmancer. These people have chosen their path, and it is not one of darkness or fear. The rider reeled back, his obsidian helm cracking to reveal a face twisted with hatred and envy. You fool, he snarled. Power must be controlled, contained. What you've done here would upset the balance of the entire world. Zara's reply was calm, but filled with an immovable certainty. The world is always changing, always growing. True balance comes not from control, but from harmony. The people of Lumina have found that harmony within themselves and with each other. That is a power you will never understand. With a final defiant cry, the rider raised his sword for a killing blow. But before he could strike, a dozen villagers moved as one. Garrick's enchanted hammer struck true, shattering the shadow blade. Mary's vines entangled the rider's mount, pulling him to the ground. And Elowen, drawing on reserves of strength she didn't know she possessed, wove an illusion so real, so vivid, that for a crucial moment, the rider's own worst fears seemed to come to life before his eyes. In that moment of vulnerability, Zara acted. A pulse of pure, radiant energy burst from her hands, enveloping the rider and his remaining forces. When the light faded, they were gone, banished to some distant realm beyond Lumina's borders. A stunned silence fell over the battlefield, broken only by the fading echoes of combat. Then, as realization dawned, a cheer rose from the throats of every Luminan. They had done it. They had defended their home, their future, their very way of life. As the sun broke through the dissipating storm clouds, Elowen found herself at the center of a jubilant crowd. Villagers embraced, laughed, and wept with relief. Even Aldrich, his skepticism finally shattered, nodded to her with newfound respect. Elder Thorn approached, leaning heavily on his staff, but with pride shining in his eyes. Well done, all of you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Luna owes its survival to each and every one of you. Zara stepped forward, her silver robes somehow untouched by the chaos of battle. No, Elder, she said softly. Luna owes its survival to itself, to the strength that has always been here, waiting to be awakened. As the villagers began the work of healing and rebuilding, Elowen turned to Zara. What happens now? She asked, suddenly aware of how much her world had changed in so short a time. Zara's smile was gentle, but her eyes held a glimmer of excitement. Now, young Elowen, the real journey begins. Lumina has taken its first steps into a larger world. There will be challenges ahead, new wonders to discover, and always more to learn. But you have proven that together, there is nothing you cannot overcome. Elowen looked out over her village. No, her home, transformed by the awakening of its true potential. The air hummed with possibility, with the promise of a future limited only by imagination and the bonds of community. As the sun climbed higher, bathing Lumina in golden light, Elowen knew that this was not an ending, but a beginning. The story of Lumina's awakening would be told for generations to come, a testament to the extraordinary power that lies within ordinary people when they stand together, believe in themselves, and dare to embrace the magic of change. And so, as Lumina began the task of rebuilding and growing into its new identity, the village stood as a beacon of hope and possibility. a living reminder that within every person, every community, lies the power to shape their own destiny and to face the unknown with courage, creativity, and an unbreakable spirit of unity. The awakening was complete, but the adventure had only just begun.